Real esoteric spirituality without all of the fluff, without all of the nonsense. This is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. Click subscribe and then hit the little bell button so that you can be notified whenever I've uploaded a video or when I'm doing the live Q&A videos. Good evening, Thunder Wizards. So today I'd like to talk with you about what I believe to be the cause of poverty in the developed world. So for this video, let me just be clear. Let us limit the scope of what we're talking about to, number one, the spiritual cause of poverty. I'm not going to even try and get into the economics of it, banks and all that kind of stuff, governments and elites, and let's just leave that out of the discussion for the moment. This is the spiritual cause of poverty, and we're going to limit it to the developed world. Now, my personal beliefs are that this applies to pretty much everything, but people get upset and like to use the third world, for why things are so, challenging for them. The world isn't fair, and here's why: those poor people in Kenya or whatever it is. So we're going to discuss the spiritual causes of poverty in the developed world. So when I ask you that question, let's say in the United States, what is the spiritual cause for average people being poor, struggling, living in challenging financial environments from day to day? They can't seem to get ahead. No matter how hard they try, they just can't seem to get out of debt. They just can't seem to get ahead. What is the cause? This is a rhetorical question. I want you to ask yourself, what is the cause of poverty in your mind? And then I want you to compare it with what I'm going to end up saying a little bit later. Before we do that, since again, the point of this is my kombucha, in case you're wondering, why is he drinking a beer? No, this is my kombucha. We need to talk about, in spiritual mythology, where the idea of money even comes from. Because when we understand where money even comes from a spiritual perspective, that's going to completely change your interaction. So probably a better way to ask the question is, what is the relationship between us and money? How does money interact with us energetically? So, first thing we need to do is take a look at what money is from a spiritual perspective. So obviously, if I ask this question and I take the word spiritual cause and I say, what is the cause of poverty? People are going to want to start talking about the banking system and Wall Street and, rich people and blah, 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 blah. But we're going to go into just the spiritual cause of it. So, mythologically speaking, where does money come from? If we go back to the language of money, I talk about this in one of my rune books, but the original word for paying for something in the Germanic language was cow. They had a different word for cow back then. It was fehu. And that's the first rune. The first rune is the fehu rune. And fehu superficially represents money. And so how would a cow represent money? Well, that's because before people started using symbolic gestures to exchange for goods and services, they actually had real things. A lot of people have come onto my channel, have contacted me, have commented, that we should all get back to a barter system, that the banks are corrupt and that money is corrupt and blah, blah, blah. And so what we need to do is go back to a barter system. Barter system says that you exchange something of real practical value for something else of real practical value. Oh, you want me to come and work on your plumbing, and in exchange for that, you'll give me some chickens, or you'll come over and you'll fix my roof. There's this trade. You trade one service or good for another good or service. There's no need for money. And this is reflected in what people call shamanism. A lot of people get upset with me because they say, if you're a spiritual teacher or a shaman, you shouldn't take money. But, whenever you want to work with a traditional, say Native American shaman, you want to go to a sweat lodge, you have to bring something. You have to bring tobacco, or you have to bring blankets or something. There has to be some exchange of energy. So that's what bartering is. It's an exchange of actual practical goods and services. And what we do in our society now is we don't do that. We have this symbolic currency that we, now I don't even carry money now. I just don't carry cash. If I want something, I just use my ATM. So it's not even an exchange. I'm just going in and putting a piece of plastic into some computerized thing, and some numbers get switched around somewhere, and I've paid for it. I haven't done anything. It's all arbitrary. It's all symbolic. And so the word fehu means cow, and it means that in times past, the thing that had the most value among the pre-industrial, pre-Christian Germanic tribal people was cows. I'm sure goats, chickens, eggs, labor, I'm sure all of those things had value also. But the thing that was, the gold, right? Now we have, well, not really, but technically Fort Knox is where the United States has all its gold, and that goes back to the time when gold actually meant something. And you could ask, how rich is that country? Oh, they have X amount of gold, and that meant their actual riches. So the gold for them would have been a cow. A person who had 100 cows was a lot richer than a guy who only had 1 or 2 cows. It was very valuable. So that's why to this day, I charge a fee for my services, a fee, a fehu. I charge a cow for my services. So we need to look at the symbolism of the cow. And if we go back into Norse mythology, for example, the first being that we see is Audumbla, the wealth cow. And it is the wealth cow that is suckling the first of the beings that arise, the gods. There's it's the Bur, the first god, Bur, which would be the equivalent of Brahma. It's the same root word, Brahma and Bur. Bur is suckling on the wealth cow as it is coming into being. So it represents the nurturing of life force energy, not just life force energy, but all nurturing is coming from this wealth cow. And in the Vedic tradition, the same thing. You have a cow. You have this cosmic cow that suckles the universe. And so it represents the mother, and the mother that gives birth and nurtures. The suckling on the teat of the cow represents the breast milk of the mother. When a child is born, what's the first thing that happens? It gets planted right on her breast, and that's where it gets its nourishment. And when we look back at the very first, the oldest carved images in the world are found in Europe, and they're, I think, 35,000 years old, and they are of a headless, and I think there's no arms and no legs. It's just this torso of an exaggerated feminine torso with these enormous breasts, and the sexual organs open, which having to do with birth and fertility. This was the first god that was worshipped, was the mother goddess. And so this idea of the cow represents the mother goddess. It represents birth and nurturing. I want you to hold on to that image, because that's going to be very important for where we're going. Remember, the title of this is, what is the spiritual cause of poverty in the first world? And what I mean by poverty is the average person who just can't seem to get it together. How come they can't seem to get their money together, and they're constantly complaining about they don't have enough money and nothing ever works out for them, and complaining about how much this costs, and taxes, and rent and all that stuff. What is the cause of that? So we have a strong connection to the water element when it comes to, if we're talking about the 5 elements. The water element would be associated with nurturing. As it so happens, in the human body, the water element is found in the kidneys. And what ends up happening when somebody feels and has money issues, one of the most common things that happens is they get lower back pain. And the Taoist would say that's the kidneys. The kidneys are under stress, because the kidneys represent the flow of water and represent feeling supported. The lower back is where you feel supported. So you walk around, you can't feel my back. And you ask people who have back problems, the majority of them are going to start talking about their money issues and why they have problems with money. So we've got that the original form of money was seen, the highest form of wealth was a cow. And, we see this also. This is, by the way, this is why cows are sacred in India, and why they walk around and all that, and we call them sacred cows. It's because the cow represents the mother goddess. And so it represents the cultural symbolism of appreciating the mother and worshiping the mother. We might, make fun of that and say whatever, but, that's where that comes from. So this is a long way around of saying that the cause of poverty, like continuous money problems in your life, if you have such problems, is because if we dig deep inside, we're going to find that you don't feel loved. Money equals love. And I know if you say that, if you just take that phrase superficially and without me explaining what that means, you're going to go, money isn't love. That is the most superficial. How could you say that? Money means blah, blah, blah. Life is more important. People and relationships, and money isn't love. From a psychological standpoint, no matter what you say to me consciously, and I'm going to agree with you, money doesn't bring happiness. I'm going to be the first one to say that. Money does not bring happiness. It doesn't bring health. There are plenty of extremely rich people who have serious health issues, and they have all the money to pay for all the doctors, and it's not saving them. And they still die from all of their stress-related illnesses. So money does not equal health. Money does not equal happiness. It doesn't equal anything. But it does represent, to our unconscious mind, it represents mother's milk. It represents love. An infant that is born, if it doesn't have a mother's breast to suckle on, it will die. It has only one source, and that is mother's milk. Mother is more important than anything to an infant. Without mother, the infant is going to die. Clear and simple. If you just had the hunter there and the wife dies, he's going to have to find some source of milk. Otherwise, what's he going to do? He's going to take some beef over the fire and here you go. Here's some roasted beef. Go ahead. Here's some venison. The child's going to starve to death. So when you have poverty issues in your life, you take all of that over-intellectualized stuff about the banks and the blah, 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 and you might be right about it. What we're going to find is that on an unconscious level, you don't feel loved. And I get this a lot with people. It's when I work with people having to do with money, and this is even people who contact me. There's an interesting thing that's happened since I started my channel is that I've got a lot of people who I'm grateful who come onto my channel and watch my channel. And a lot of people have taken advantage of the free YouTube channel, and I want you to. It gives me joy to know that people are taking the teachings that I'm putting out on the free YouTube channel, the hundreds of videos on there, the Wheel breath, the Qigong, all of those teachings. It gives me great joy to know that people are taking advantage of those free teachings and using them. And as I've said, you don't have to train with me. You don't have to buy one of my products. If you go on to the free channel and put some time and effort into learning how to do energy work and, even learning how to do runes and learning, you can even grab, there are mantras on there you can grab. There are all kinds of things. If you wanted to and you put the time and effort into it, and it wouldn't be that much effort, you could create your own spiritual program that would get you through life, and it wouldn't cost you a dime. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I can share that, and that there are people that want to hear that and the people that use that. Having said that, there are some people who watch my channel. They're staunch followers of me. They think that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they don't have money to get the, subscribe on the Patreon channel. They don't have money for all kinds of things. But they have money to send me gifts. And I've gotten gifts from some people who have, trained with me, and people who haven't trained with me. And so I find it interesting that I'm thinking of one individual who wanted to give me a gift, and I said, that's okay. I don't need a gift. If you really want to do something for me to support the channel in some monetary way with a service or with a subscription. The person was saying that they didn't have the money to do that, but they felt that they had something of value that they wanted to give to me, but they didn't want to pay for anything. And I run into people on the channel who I get into conversations with, like on the YouTube channel. If you look, you'll see there are some people I engage with, and not when I'm not in a flame war with somebody. I'm engaging them in a conversation, and you'll see in there they'll say, I can't afford it now, or someday I'm going to pay, but blah 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 blah, and they, what I mean. And there's all this money issue going on, and what I'm saying is that underneath all of that is an unconscious belief that they're not worthy of money. So having money in your life not only does the superficial practical things of paying your bills and buying food and clothing and healthcare and whatever, it does something even greater than that. When you have money, you feel not only that you are being loved by the universe, that the mother is loving you and nurturing you. Not only do you feel that, but you feel like you have value, you have worth. Because I hear these same people who talk about wanting to start a career and saying, I know I have something of value to give, and then they'll give some excuse as to why they can't do it. They're not ready yet. They don't know enough. And I say to people, the way to learn is by doing. I became a rune, if you want to call it a master. I wouldn't use that word, but if somebody wants to use that word, a rune teacher. Okay, I'm a rune teacher. I became a teacher of runes because I didn't have it all figured out. I still don't, by the way. I didn't have it all figured out, and I started doing rune readings. And it was doing rune readings. I was getting paid to do them, although people didn't know I was using runes, but I was getting paid, and I was doing rune readings, and it was in that grinder of, okay, what does this mean in this situation? They just asked me a question, what does this mean? That's how I learned practically what the runes meant. That's why when you talk to me about runes, I'm not just going to give you some pedantic, book answer. I'm going to tell you exactly what it means, because I have practical experience, not knowing what I'm doing and figuring it out as I go. And that's because at some point I must have, I'm looking back, hindsight is 20/20. I must have, in my desperation, I was desperate for money, but I must have had a belief that I had some value in this world, that I had something of value to offer. Because otherwise I wouldn't have even asked for money for my services. So again, you're going to find people who have money issues who are going to be lots of times the same people who are saying, I know I have something of value to give to the world, and someday, and I really have a lot of knowledge and I want to give it back. Here's one of the things that happens with, this happens all the time, but it's an interesting phenomenon. That there are people who want to connect with me on a personal level. They don't want to connect with me on a financial level. They don't want to pay me for my time, but they want to connect with me on a personal level. And they want to give me things. And in some instances, they say, I don't want to pay for just like everybody else. I want to give you something of me, so that you can be benefited. That it's about them. That is a mommy and daddy thing. That means that you didn't get enough acknowledgement from your parents, and the teacher psychologically becomes the, you transfer your mommy and daddy issues onto a teacher. It has to happen. So I understand it. It's part of the deal. But when you see it happening with money, the whole anal retentive, if you don't know what the word anal retentive, it means that comes from a Freudian thing where the child won't take a dump because that is seen as the child is, because the mother says, good for you. So the child thinks he's giving the mother a gift by taking a dump. So if he's holding on, he's squeezing his anus, he's holding his dump in, he's holding on and he's not giving. He's not giving to mom. And so that's a sign of anal retentiveness, that you don't want to pay for things, but you want to get my love and approval and attention, and you'll do it through some other way. That's what all this stuff is here. And if you get into that, you find that there's going to be an unconscious fear that they're unlovable, that they don't have any value in this world. And so they're still waiting for mommy and daddy to tell them, you're a good boy, you're a good girl. It sounds like I'm being critical, and I'm not, because I've lived through it as well. It takes one to know one. And I've seen it. I've seen it in my own family. I've got a sibling who, very well will probably die on the street. And he refuses to go through the normal channels to get himself, there's plenty of free money out there for people with physical issues, and there's plenty of programs out there that will give you money and give you a place to live, but he refuses to do that. And, I know him well enough to know, and how we grew up, that he doesn't feel worthy and he doesn't feel loved. And so he wants to continue to create an environment where he can keep that story going. You don't understand the world this, my parents did this, he blames me for his entire life. He still to this day thinks that I'm the cause of all of his problems. And really what it is that when I was born, he was almost 5 years old. And guess what happened? I was the infant and he was a toddler, and all of a sudden I got all the attention because I was the baby now. I swear to you, he never got over that. So he's still waiting for mommy and daddy to love him, and both of our parents are dead. And it's going to kill him, very likely. Maybe it won't, but very likely. So what I'm trying to point out is I want you to examine, how do you feel? How do you feel about your place in the universe? I know you can intellectually say you deserve this and you deserve that. Do you have resentment tied up to the idea of, why don't I have enough money? Why don't I have this? If you are somebody who sees the world as an unfair place, where there isn't enough money to go around. I was watching a show just last night on Netflix, and there was a real funny line. The guy was looking at, there was a girl next door that he's in love with, and she's married to some guy, and he's like listening in the wall to them laughing and having sex, and he says, you know, there's only so much happiness in the world, and they're hogging it all. Do you have that kind of a feeling? You see other people. You know, this is, by the way, I believe this is a lot of the, you know, the anti elite conspiracy theories going around. I was talking with another student, and you know, to his credit, he's I find him to be a very conscious individual, and I see him being very honest as he's going through things. And he was talking about something, you know, and he was I was probing him for his feelings about something, and he started confessing that he felt you know, that things weren't fair, and that he wanted to do something and get them back and show them, and he wanted to get revenge on the world. And I said, so who are the people that you want to get revenge on? And he said, I don't know, the elites, or the, what's the word, the Illuminati. And I said, oh, I can understand that. And I said, who are the Illuminati? And he thought, and he couldn't come up with an answer. And I said, so they're just this group of people somewhere out there who have all the money and the power, and they're keeping it from you. He's like, yeah. Now, that is obvious to me. The same thing that I felt and have felt, and I keep hearing, this comes back to, on an unconscious level, you don't feel the mother loves you. Your mother, the mother. This is an angry child who doesn't feel nurtured. And so I want to just bring that up and ask you to just look within and see if that is something that you have inside of you. Because if it is, then until that is resolved, what is going to happen is you are going to unconsciously reject the nurturing that is coming to you from the universe, opportunities that are coming to you from the universe. You will unconsciously reject them, and you will unconsciously continue to create situations where you are forced to feel unloved and unworthy and cheated and all of that. I could go on with so many more examples. I had another example today. It just blew my mind. I won't get into it, but I'm also talking about my own experience myself, and to underscore that the only way out of that is to take direct action, to take what is right in front of you, what is sitting right in front of you that wants to nurture you and give to you. To take action, to take that. The first thing that I know of that you can do is have that awareness. Now, that conscious awareness may not be enough, because as you know, the unconscious programming is usually, you know, far more powerful than what we can, you know, consciously affirm. But that would be the first step, is to catch yourself. Every time you find yourself going into that feeling of I'm not enough and the world is taken from me and why don't I have this and why don't they do that and it's not fair. To stop and go, oh, there's that pattern again, there's that thought process again, and make the effort to honestly look at what you do have. I'll just give you a real easy example. There's a homeless guy right down the street. And I don't know why he's homeless. I feel for the guy. I would not want to be him. But he is obese. He's big. I mean, and I always see him with food. He's always got, you know, fast food, hamburgers, and he's got plenty of food. I don't know where he gets it. I don't know if it's given to him or if he finds it, but whatever. But even that food is so easy to find in the first world. There is, right down the street here, I don't even have to drive my car. I just walk 2 blocks. There is a Vaughn's. It's a huge, huge building filled with every possible kind of food you could imagine. And if I go in there with $5, I will leave with food that for my ancient ancestors would have been unbelievable. To have that much meat in your hands, holy crap, that would have taken a lot of hours, and I would have had to kill the animal, I would have skinned it, and I would have taken it and cooked it and smoked it and whatever. You know, there's milk, there's you know, and you can go to a McDonald's and for $2.90, I don't even know how much, I haven't been to McDonald's in years, I'm imagining $2 or $3 you can get, you know, this huge meal that will fill you up. We have so much surrounding us all the time. And just to have access to that, you would have been rich. Remember, the idea of being rich comes from the word cow. So if you have access to beef, that makes you rich, right? Just right there, right off the bat, you're already rich. You got access to beef. So the first thing to do is to acknowledge that there is resources and nurturing available to you right where you are all the time. And then the second thing that I would recommend doing is doing some energy work. If you're already doing energy work, great. Because life force energy is the quickest way to feel connected and nurtured by the mother. It connects you directly to, if you want to call it the matrix, if you want to call it the collective unconscious, if you want to call it God, I don't care what you want to call it. But it also has a direct physical effect on you. And what will happen is if you do energy work, especially something like the on the free channel, you can do the Thor's hammer. The Thor's hammer or the Wheel breath. Either one of those will definitely connect you to energy which will go into your kidneys. And the more that you fill your kidneys with this life force energy, the more the kidneys will want to release those feelings. You might release some sadness. You might cry over things. This is one of the great things about Qigong, especially some of the Qigong I teach. It is designed to make you conscious. And the best way to interact with the Qigong I teach is to release and to connect infinitely. There's at least one person who has learned that he thinks that energy work is to grab as much energy and stuff it inside you as much as possible. And that's coming from the opposite. You want to release and connect and let it flow through you. Let infinity flow through you. And you can't let infinity flow through you if you don't start with the assumption that you are loved, and that you are worthy, and that resources are infinite. Now, none of us here are going to debate that in the whole world there is no shortage of resources. We could feed every single person on the planet many times over. There's no shortage of resources. It's just whether or not, we are distributing them, and or whether or not people are seeking them out and working for them. Again, I want to stay on the first world, because if I start talking about the third world, then we get into all kinds of discussions about, but they can't help it, blah, blah, blah. So I don't even want to go there. In the first world, there is no excuse for everybody not having something. And so the first step would be to catch yourself when you start to feel like there isn't enough in the world for you. The second thing is start working with energy. If you don't want to do the celestial qigong, go onto my channel and do the free stuff. And do it on a regular basis. You have to eat every day, right? You can't eat once a week. You got to eat every day. Well, you could eat once a week, but you'd be probably, very malnourished. So you got to eat every day. You should be doing some kind of energy work on a daily basis to connect you with that. And then the third thing is you're going to have to do some conscious work to repair your unconscious issues, having to do with money and having to do with feeling loved and worthy and nurturing and all that. Because there are people, and I've known them, who have done a ton of energy work, but they still run around with this attitude of it's not enough. And, so you can still have access to all the life force energy and still sabotage your own success. And then fourth would be to go and find out what your soul desire is, because until you find out what your soul desire is, then there's a good chance you're just going to stay in conflict with yourself. So anyway, I just thought I'd say that towards the what I've done recently. I'll shut up with this, and then if there's any questions, I'll answer it. But what I've done is I have thought long and hard about how to take the most important things I've been teaching and put them into some kind of order that I think would be most helpful. So that is where I came up with neo.thunderwizard.com. So this is a 4-step process, I think, that based on my teachings, how to get the most out of my teachings. The first one is to know what your destination is. And what is the map to get to your destination? And that is knowing what your soul desire is. And I talk about that in the Find Your Perfect Career video series. And I use the word career in quotes because career isn't just what you do for money. It's really your life purpose. And the idea is that when you know what your deepest soul desire is, and you become aligned with your ideal authentic self, and you have overcome the temptation to please others and to fit into society, and you are dedicated only to your personal integrity, which is your deepest joy, then what ends up happening is that the universe pays you to be yourself. It's really, I want you to absorb that concept, because when I became aware of that, it was difficult to swallow. You mean that all I have to do to have all of the resources I need is to be my authentic self and to share that with the world? You mean I have to do the thing that makes me happiest and give that away? If I do that, that is all that I need to do to have the universe pay me to exist? Because on a psychological level, that's what it represents. You being paid, you having money to pay your bills and drive your car and feed yourself, on an unconscious level, it signifies the universe saying, we want you just to be yourself. Here's some money. Go be yourself. So that's the first one. First one is to find out your destination and the map, which is to know what your soul desire is. That's in the Find Your Career video series. Second one is you need to have a vehicle. So if you know where the destination is, you have the map. Once you've figured that out, you need a vehicle to get you there. And that is where the life force energy comes in. So that you can either use the free Qigong on the channel, or you can use the high-level stuff, which is the celestial Qigong that I offer. So you got to know what your destination is, what the map is. You got to have a vehicle to get you there, which is life force energy. And then third, if you're going to drive to get to your destination, you need to know the rules of the road. And that is the 5 rules to master the matrix. The great thing about the 5 rules to master the matrix is that you don't have to have it all figured out. You can still have all of your unconscious garbage and all of your patterns and all that. If you just take it from an intellectual standpoint that there are 5 rules that the matrix, the universe, runs by. If you know how to command the universe with those 5 rules, then you can get the universe to do whatever you need, do what you want. That's the 5 rules to master the matrix. That's the rules of the road. And then the 4th one is what we're doing now, which is we need continually to address this, because your unconscious mind isn't going to magically turn itself off and all of your unconscious patterns aren't going to magically go away. Like, a lot of New Age stuff wants to make you think that, oh, if I just do this and then it's all perfect and everything is, no, you got to keep working at it. Your unconscious issues, there's been a lot of energy been put into programming them. It's going to take a while to defrag that stuff, and that is done through what we do here, the mentoring, the question and answer. And so that is found on the Patreon channel and the Manifestation Mastery course. By the way, coming at the end of this month, this is March 2019, I will be back on YouTube, and I'll be able to do live YouTube, which means that I can go into Patreon and create live question and answers just for the Manifestation Mastery course people, the Patreon subscribers at that level and above. And we're going to have Q&As where you can ask me questions. It's designed for the people who put the time and effort to watch the videos, who've read the books, who are living this. Even the ones that don't work with me or haven't paid me a dime, it's designed for those people who are living this, who want questions, and you want to get detailed answers from me. That's what that's there. I want to create a community so that ideally we have a lot of people in that Manifestation Mastery course who on a weekly basis can come together and we can rap, man. So that's my goal for that. So those are the 4 things that this channel is going to start pushing towards. We've got some other things coming up. There might be some opportunities for people to become affiliates, which means that they can go out and advertise my stuff and make some money. We'll see where that goes, but there's some possibilities for that. Okay, so now I've done my paid commercial announcement. Let me see if there are any thoughts. Paul Kupari, any thoughts today on being 33333? A lot of 3s in there. No, that stuff is interesting. Numerology is interesting, and it's interesting, but let's be honest. If you woke up this morning and you didn't know what the date was, there'd be no numbers flying around telling you what the date was. We arbitrarily picked that. We picked the dates and the times and all that. So I'm not going to say that there isn't any value to it, but I think sometimes people go overboard with that numerology kind of stuff. Just my thing. Selenet Rodriguez, question. Would it make sense to work with Rahu to counterbalance that stagnation? Well, if you've read my advanced shamanism, by the way, I do have books out there, guys. This isn't just a video channel. I have books out there. You can go read them, and videos and DVDs and all that. In the advanced rune shamanism book and video, I do talk about that. So what that means is, in fact, let me get mine. I don't have it in my little graph. I don't have it memorized. Hang on, I'll be right back. I'm just stepping over here to grab this thing. This is the first one I made, by the way. This is what went into the book. You can see my handwriting is still there. This is the first one that I made and printed out, and I've been using it for years. It's all tattered and brown and torn and all that. So if we look at this, this is the what I call the Rune Wheel. And You have, what you're talking about here is up in the north, you have Fehu. And if Fehu is reversed, then you want to look what is counterbalancing that. You go directly opposite, you have Raito, right? So Raito comes from the word where we get right, R-I-T-E. It's also the same where we get the word R-I-G-H-T. And it means where we get the word ritual from, comes from that, all that. Raito literally is talking about the track that the sun takes across the sky, meaning that that never changes. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and it has a track that it follows every single day. It's, you know, things going in the right direction, the correct direction. It means following the law. Being righteous is somebody who follows the law. It means to do a ritual, you have to follow certain rules. You can't just, you know, some rituals are very precise. The rules to do, you light this here, you put that there, you say this, you face this direction. They're very specific rules for a ritual. So it has to do with order. But it means following the true path of your soul, which is the sun going across the sky. The sun is your soul, following your true orlog, your true origin law, your true destiny, your true dharma. People get dharma and karma mixed up. Dharma is what you are here to do, what you're supposed to do, what your soul wants to do. Karma is just the effects of whatever it is you do, whether it's positive or negative, destructive or destructive. So the Raito is your dharma. So what that means is, if you're having money problems, you ask yourself, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Because what happens is people get into this, this never-ending cycle, this self-feeding, cycle of they don't have money. So instead of doing what it is that makes them happy, they go get some stupid job because they think they're supposed to. Then they get trapped in some stupid job they can't stand. They still aren't making any money. They hate themselves even more. And they go deeper into debt. Because the further away you get from your true path, the less the universe wants to provide you with money. Because remember, the assumption is that the universe wants to pay you to be your authentic self. So if you're doing something that's taking you away from being your authentic self, the universe is going to keep taking money away from you, because it's like, no, I'm supposed to pay you to be yourself, and you're doing this stupid, crappy job you can't stand. And then people get into lack of money, and then they start doing things. They cut corners, they lie, they steal. These are all ways, and all of this comes from an assumption that they're not loved. The reason why somebody steals is because there's an assumption they're not going to get what they want. And they're not going to get what they need. And so they have to go steal it, which creates this self-hatred and creates this energy. You're lying to yourself. So to understand that, we need to talk about Rahu. Rahu is the north node of the moon, which represents, among other things, desires that cannot be fulfilled. He's the Karaka, the significator of thieves, of crime. Because anybody who steals from other people has a base belief that they're not going to be given what they need. So the mythology of Rahu is that in the beginning of the universe, the gods and the terrestrial gods, the celestial gods and the terrestrial gods, who fight with each other, got together to stir the ocean of milk, which was going to bring the nectar of immortality. So immortality represents having infinite life force energy to keep you alive, which means resources. You have infinite resources to stay alive. This is what the nectar of immortality represents. So the celestial gods decided that they were going to lie to the terrestrial gods, and they were going to distract them. So Vishnu transformed himself into this beautiful dancing girl, and he's dancing around in a bikini, and all the terrestrial gods, because they represent fertility and lust and, you know, sex and all that. They like that stuff. They can't take their eyes off of this dancing girl, and she's going around and passing the nectar of immortality to the celestial gods, and they're going to drink it all. That's their plan. And one of the terrestrial gods is a snake, and his name was Rahu, and he had a boon from Brahma that he could drink the nectar of immortality. So he disguised himself. He put on one of those, you know, the Groucho Marx, you know, nose and thing, and sat there in between the sun and the moon. Vishnu's going around, and he hands him the nectar of immortality, and as he's drinking it, you know, his fake glasses come off, and the sun and the moon point at him and say, "He's a demon, kill him." Vishnu pulls out his chakra, cuts off his head. As he's swallowing the nectar of immortality, his head is cut off from his body, and he's immortal now, but now he's just a head. He has no body. So all he does is he thinks about all of the things that he can never have because he can never experience it. And this represents how we feel. When we feel unloved and unworthy, we feel like Rahu, who has this appetite for everything, and everything he puts in his mouth just falls out his neck. And he never feels full, and nothing's ever enough. This is addiction, obsession. This is the mindset behind what's happening when people get into poverty mindsets. They don't realize that they keep creating that poverty, because what's happening is that they have a pattern in their head. Once you decide that the world is an unfair place, that nobody loves you, that you're not worthy of anything, once you make that decision and it gets into your unconscious mind, you can consciously want all, you know, success and money. You can want that all day, and it's not going to bring you anything. You can go out there and try and make things happen, but if you've got that belief in there that you're unloved and you're unworthy, it won't matter what you think up here. You'll be like Rahu. Whatever money you get, you know, people that win the lottery, poor people that win the lottery almost invariably end up not only poor again, but in debt. Just a few years later, and they won $20 million, you know, 5 years later, they're not only broke again, but in debt. Because that mindset of, you know, I'm not worthy and this is a cruel place and nobody loves me is so deeply ingrained that you keep creating that, and you'll even unconsciously get rid of all your money so you can justify that feeling. So this is what I'm saying where poverty comes from. So Raito means to do the rituals, shamanic rituals. What they do is they align the unconscious mind to your soul. When your unconscious mind is aligned with your soul, then you want to go and give away your truth, and you are perfectly happy charging people for that because you have a service. Again, I find it so strange that people have no problem paying for plumbers, you know, cell phones, television, going to the grocer, going to the dentist. They have no problem paying for any of that, but they have a problem paying for spiritual guidance, spiritual services. That's somehow evil and wrong. But paying for everything else is okay. That shows somebody who doesn't believe that their parents love them. Spirituality becomes a symbol of their parents. You know, you grow up and it's no longer mommy and daddy, now it's God. And if God, you know, God should give you everything for free, which means the priest, the shaman, the spiritual teacher. They need to give you everything for free. What you really want is you want mommy and daddy's love. And again, you're going to find people with money issues, people who complain about, you know, again, it just blows me away. I'll do one video that'll be you know, an advertisement for one of my services, and then I'll get these comments of, why does everything cost? And then I have to say, well, it doesn't. There's over 400 videos on my channel. I can't even tell you how many free meditations and practices that are on there that if you put the time and effort to learn it, you wouldn't have to pay me anything. You'd have everything you needed. They don't see that. It's because what we do is when we're in that state, we recreate in our external world the excuse to justify the feelings that we're walking around with all the time. So the answer is to go in there. You're very right. To do shamanic ritual. Shamanic ritual will change the unconscious patterns so that you can receive money. That's what that means. To use raito when you feel you're being held out on financial. Ashkan Najati question: is the Arruda Lagna vital in achieving success? So for that, you want to go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. I don't know if you've had a reading from me. Probably you've heard me talk about the Arruda. And the Arruda is the reflection. So for those who don't understand what that means, you have in Vedic astrology, your ascendant is your first house. Your sign is not where your sun is, like in Western astrology. You know, your sun is in Virgo, so you're a Virgo. In Vedic astrology, your sign is where your rising sign is, because Lagna comes from the same root that we have, I'm not kidding you, Lugnut. L-U-G-N-U-T, those things that, you know, that you screw into place, those lug nuts. Lug comes from the same root as lugna. Lugna means your ascendant, it means your sign. So I'm a Leo in Vedic astrology. That's how I was screwed into place. So that's how I view my world, and that's how my karma has to be worked out, is through the sign of Leo. That's my lugna, my ascendant. That's who I am. But that's not how you perceive me. How you perceive me is my reflection. And my reflection is Mars in Libra, in the third house. Mars is the warrior, and Libra is it's the sign of Venus that represents equal exchange of energy. So it could mean the spiritual warrior, or the warrior of balance, or the warrior of peace. So at my best, what people see in me is they see a protective warrior or a healer warrior, that kind of a thing. So there's a reason why I teach the way that I do. There's a reason why I'm in your face. That's the warrior. I communicate on a regular basis. That's the third house. That's how you see me. That is what I do for a living. I'm doing it right now. I had nothing to do for a couple of hours on a Sunday, so I got onto live YouTube, and I mean not YouTube, but Facebook, and I just started spouting what was coming out of me. I do that for a reason, because that's my Arruda. My Arruda says that's how people perceive me. When you present yourself the way that people automatically perceive you, they want to reward you for that. So the short answer is yes. If you want to make money in life, that is one of the most valuable tools I know of. And everybody, the thing about Vedic astrology is that there are so many ways to get to the same place. You could look at the 10th house or the 6th house. You could look at the planet that's ruling your ascendant. You can do all kinds of things to find out where your career is. But for me, this is easy, because the Arruda, once I discovered that when you represent yourself the way people already see you, they feel, number one, they feel good, because if you act differently from your Arruda, and a lot of people are doing it without realizing it, then people feel like there's something wrong, like, why is that person acting completely differently than how I see them? And then they feel uncomfortable, and they'll say things like, I don't know what it is about that person, but I just don't like them. They may be saying that I see them being a certain way, and they're not acting anything like that, and I don't trust them now. The person going along doesn't realize that they're trying to live according to their ascendant. And they think everybody sees them the way that they see themselves, and they're confused as to why. I'm just trying to be truthful about who I am, and nobody likes me. But when you start acting not as how you feel about yourself, but as people see you, when you start putting on the costume that you're here, to play the part you're here to play, then people in the audience start clapping and they throw roses up on the stage. So yeah, the Arruda Lugna is, you know, in fact, if you've got, like for me, I have a planet in my Arruda. You know, sometimes the Arruda will just be a house with a sign and there's no planet in it. And so it'll have, then you start to want to look at what are the, you know, other planets that are aspecting it and the sign aspects and all that. But when you got a planet in that house, then you want to go, you can go really deep and find out what is the star constellation that the planet is sitting on, and what does that star constellation mean? You know, I've done that, and that's how I've, you know, again, my Arruda says I'm supposed to be communicating spiritual concepts forcefully on a regular basis and in ways that transform people. That's all in my Arruda. And so I just do what it says, and I do things that are embarrassing. I think it's stupid. I'm realizing I've been talking for nonstop for 1 hour. It's just why people want to sit and listen to me babble for an hour is beyond me, but they do. So even though I think it's silly and it's embarrassing, every time I get off, I go, oh my God, I'm so full of myself. And you'd be right. Somebody said something on one of my videos about, man, this guy's massive ego. And I wanted to write, you got that right. I got a huge fucking ego. You and me both the same. I wouldn't want to listen to me. But that's my Arruda. So you get your ego out of the way, and you do what your Arruda tells you. If you know how to really get into it and figure it out, you know, that's where your success is going to lie. Not only in business, but in relationships with people. Because the average person, when you go to a party or you go out to dinner, they're going to see you as your Arruda. They don't know you yet. They may never know you. Your spouse may not even know who you are yet. So, yes, it is vital in achieving success. Okay, so I got to get ready for some other stuff, so I'm gonna sign off here. So again, the thing that I'm focusing most on, two things, is one, we are going to get back to the live YouTube Q&As coming up here in the next few weeks. And the four-pronged attack, if you really want to get the most out of my teaching. You know, people have been asking me for a long time, can you put this in some kind of a code so we can follow A, B, C, D, F, and G? So that's what I'm doing now. Go to Neo, I'm pointing for when after I edit it and put it up, neo.thunderwizard.com. Go there, and that will help you with that. And of course, courses.thunderwizard.com, so you can see all the stuff that's available for you. And if not that, then just please do me the favor of going on and watching my YouTube channel, the free YouTube videos. Put the time and effort to watch it and learn what I teach so that you can get the most out of it. Okay, that's it. I will talk to you guys another time.